Okay, picking up our story of our tissue response to injury, we are now in the proliferation or fibroblastic repair phase. So again, just a review of where we kind of ended, we were looking at the acute inflammatory response. So basically, the injury has happened and the cells have responded. Chemical mediators have come to the area. We got vasodilation, we got increased permeability, we got margination. All of that builds to allowing white blood cells to leave the blood vessels, get out into the area, and start cleaning up. As they start to clear up, then coagulation can occur and we can get a clot formation. So we're at this point that we have this leaky platelet, just the start of a fibrin clot, and now we're in the point that, okay, let's start rebuilding. So the goal of this phase really is about scar formation and tissue repair. So the idea being to replace the dead or damaged cells with healthy ones. And we call this fibroplasia. It's kind of right after the acute inflammatory response phase, at the very kind of end of that, so within the first few days, and can last about 4 to 6 weeks. So if you really look at a lot of our injuries, 4 to 6 weeks is kind of that timeline that we start to say that the area is really stable. But also think about that with injuries. When you talk about someone having an ankle sprain and you put them back out on the floor within 3 days, where are we actually in this repair? We probably just have that kind of light fibrin clot, and that's not the best. And that's one of the reasons why you end up having to tape or brace or give some other support, because that tissue itself is not strong enough. So during this phase now, the inflammation signs and symptoms start to subside. So 5 signs of inflammation, right? Go over them in your head right now. Warmth, redness, pain, loss of function is the one that is the result of kind of all the others, and swelling. Okay, so those 5 signs start to kind of subside. Now, that's not to say they're completely gone. We'll probably still have swelling because swelling will still be in the area, but there's not what we call any new active swelling. So, usually someone throughout the day will start to swell more and more if they're still actively swelling, because they're in a dependent position. Gravity is pulling that swelling. They're still really tender. So swelling fluctuates at night and throughout the day. At this point, we should see stability in the swelling. It's probably still present. We haven't gotten it all out of that area, but it's nothing new anymore. The redness for sure is usually gone. Tenderness is still there. Tenderness and pain will still happen, especially if they stress the structures too much. But it shouldn't be that kind of constant pain. So one of the videos that is kind of the additional video that you can watch about this chapter really does go into how, like, if you're sleeping and you're in the acute inflammatory phase, you'll always have pain, no matter what position, no matter how you have it. At this point, you really only have pain if you're stressing the tissue or if you're in a bad position. Now, the larger the injury, the longer the repair phase is going to be, and the longer it took for the inflammatory response to target. So again, those timelines are really tricky and you shouldn't rely on them. Okay, so types of repair. When we talk about repairing tissue, we have different ways our body repairs. So we have reconstitution, or sometimes called regeneration, and we have replacement. So reconstitution, regeneration is for cells that turn over really quickly, have a high rate of turnover. So your skin cells, your liver cells, college students, liver cells turning over way too much. Those are the cells with a high rate of turnover. And they can also be reconstituted either perfectly, where they're replaced with completely identical cells, or imperfectly, where they're mostly identical, but maybe there's a little bit of scar formation. So even your liver, right? Cirrhosis of the liver, that's scar formation in your liver, because now you've damaged your liver so much that we're in imperfect reconstitution. Replacement is what we're going to mainly deal with in the musculoskeletal system. So replacement is scar tissue formation. And even with replacement, we have kind of two types. We have primary intention and secondary intention replacement. And primary intention is really for small things, okay? And really that means that, small lacerations and incisions, we're going to get a little bit of scarring, but it's something that is going to look fairly consistent. It's going to minimize effects on the actual structure and function of the tissue because it's going to be kind of such a small scar. Whereas secondary intention is really large gaps, and that's going to be big scar tissue. That's going to be problems with function and structure. One kind of interesting note is when we talk about healing and tissue response to injury, it's really important to think about nutrition and think about energy. Your cells are working much harder and have much higher rates of metabolism during the repair phase and really the inflammatory phase as well. And so they need energy. And actually ATP regulates the rate and quality of healing. So if you don't have available energy to your body, the healing's going to be delayed and we're going to get even more scar tissue and get kind of potentially caught in that chronic inflammatory response phase. And so it's really important to, again, fuel your body properly and to have these high levels of ATP because it's going to provide the metabolic energy needed to restore the cell's metabolism in the cell membranes. It's also going to be important for the sodium potassium pump and building, you're building things. You need energy to build. Okay, so our 3 steps, again, continuum, all these are happening kind of together. But step 1 is revascularization. And so this is where, so remember we've kind of had damage to the blood vessels. We've shut down we vasoconstricted originally and then we vasodilated and what was left. We have fibrin clots over the ruptured capillaries. What really happens now is we need more. We need more highways. So remember we were kind of using that analogy of if there's an accident on a highway and you can't get to where you need to go, okay, we need to create new roads to get to the damaged site. And that's what this revascularization is. So endothelial capillary buds grow. You actually grow new capillaries. We get increased oxygen delivery, increased blood flow, and nutrients to the area. So this is really kind of the transitional step from the acute inflammatory response phase to the proliferation or fibroblastic repair phase. Those capillary buds begin to communicate with existing capillaries and grows a new network. And this will happen usually 4 to 6 days. Again, got to be careful with the numbers of the days. It's what we call angiogenesis. Angiogenesis. And it's this growth of new blood vessels. So it's really cool. We do ultrasound, so muscular skeletal ultrasound where we can actually visualize. We have a guy who is a salesman that comes in and talks to the seniors with it. And on that, he can actually put on a Doppler, which a Doppler measures blood flow and shows the blood flow in the image of the ultrasound. When you look at healing tissue that is in the proliferation phase, it has up to like 4 times more blood flow than a fully healed or normal, uninjured part of the body. So if you compare bilaterally, because of this. And so that's when we start talking about getting out of the proliferation phase and into the maturation healing phase, we're going to see that drop in these capillaries. They're going to dissolve and they're going to disappear because they're not needed anymore. But right now, they're really important. So they create these arcades, these arches to create more pathways for this blood flow to get to. Next, we have collagen formation. This is, again, now the building. So we have that fibrin clot, right? All those steps, prothrombin turned into thrombin. Okay, we're kind of all in that. We have a fibrin clot in place. Now, fibroblasts are attached to the area. They're going to lay down their collagen at random throughout the matrix. Granulation tissue is going to form, which is scar tissue. Again, this has kind of its peak at about 4 to 6 days. And it's mostly done by 15 to 20 days, but it's not strong yet. Okay, because really, so remember we were talking about the dam breaking, and The fibrin clot was just kind of putting your hand over the top. What the collagen formation really is okay, let's throw kind of everything at this. So what we're putting on is not strong, it's not permanent. It's not the new dam, it's not the new cement, whatever we're gonna do. This is just kind of a patch. And so in order to make up for the fact that it's weaker, the type 1 collagen that or the type 3 collagen that we're putting in, we need to put a lot of it down. And so we're just kind of throwing it at this area to try to make it as stable as possible, even though it's not as strong as it could be. When the collagen realigns in the maturation phase, then it will become stronger. So with all that increased collagen, we are getting increased strength, but we also have, again, those increased needs for oxygen and cell metabolism and nutrients. So this area is really active. Final step in the repair phase is wound contracture. So as we have this clot and now the structure, the fibrin, the fibrocartilage forming, now we also have myofibroblasts. So whenever we see myo, there's hints of muscle in there. And so these can actually contract. They're muscle fibers, they can contract. So those myofibroblasts accumulate around the margins, the wound circle, kind of the borders of the wound, and they start to pull towards the center so that it contracts. Again, we've been laying down type 3 collagen, and that's less strong than the type 1. And so we throw a lot of collagen fibers at it, so a high number of collagen fibers in order to try to increase the strength, but it's not going to be efficient, right? And so as we increase the strength, then the fibroblasts can start to disappear because we no longer have to be building that fibrin, building that collagen, because it's in place. So as collagen numbers increase, fibroblast numbers decrease, okay? So again, type 3 collagen is our scar tissue, and we really want this tissue to be type 1. And so if we can eventually get all this collagen to type 1, that's gonna make it a better healed area. Now, obviously, smaller wounds need less collagen, so there's less chance of this scar to really be permanent and forming. And at this point, when we have that fibrin all in place, the collagen is in place, we have kind of this contracted wound, that's when now the maturation phase can start. So usually we say at the end of this phase, we have a pretty good scar. It's a solid scar. It has a lot of collagen in it, so it has some strength, but it's not strength efficiently. It's not necessarily strong in the direction that it needs to be. Think Wolff's Law, right? It's not strong in the way that it's pulling, in the way that tissue needs. It's just kind of a patch. And so eventually we need to train that collagen to be strong in the ways that that tissue needs to be. So just kind of diagrams from your book to kind of wrap up. And you can kind of see how that wound starts to get pulled together. So not only does the collagen come in and start to form and build the bridge, but then the myofibrils on the corners really start to pull in. And you can see that it can be anywhere, this is about 3 weeks. So up to 4 to 6 weeks before something is truly scarred up and ready. And then this is a wound healing, but you can see that contraction happening over time. And I think that's kind of cool.